Hi,
Good morning,
everyone.
everybody. Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are around the world. Welcome to Conversations on Being with Rachel and Helen and Kristen. Hi.
How are you all doing and being? And just imagine yourself that you let go of all your problems. Who would you be? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about who are we actually? Who can we be and being you changing the world? Kristen, welcome on our bi it's not bi-weekly, it's actually twice a
Twice
week.
a week, whatever
So
that is.
yeah, so welcome. And it's a totally unstructured, no form, no structure, no significance.
Easter egg glory, baby.
So, woohoo! So we basically
Oh, yeah.
we can ask some questions. And right before we got on the air, you said that you've been being your facilitator from the second one. So
Yeah,
you
it was
feel
like I
kind of
was just being stubborn. I knew with the
that's
first one that I was going to do it. I just wasn't going to do it quite yet.
You're
yeah.
gonna be dragged
That
over
was
kicking
kind
and
of
screaming
stupid.
to number two.
Yeah, me too, because I waited till this year actually. Even I had the prerequisites from before and could have done it when you did it, or a year before, or next year, whatever it was. So, what actually pulled you into being your facilitator?
Into knowing that you were going to do it beforehand and then into actually choosing it. Double
Yeah,
whammy.
double
Yeah.
whammy.
I have to say the energy of it. And I don't have a definition for that. It was just something like I just knew.
Uh-huh.
And when it first came up, I just wasn't quite ready to actually choose it.
So, can you
And
say
then
more
in
about
choosing
not
it, I got the awareness that, I actually do
Yeah.
desire to choose this. So, yeah.
What changed when you chose it? Energetically, I mean.
Oh, that being you, it's a whole different space than what you think you are. So when you starting that journey of even getting the awareness of what being you is, and that it isn't what you think it is, and it kind of isn't anything. I mean, there is no definition really to put on it. And the more that I play with it, the more layers of the definitions and who I think I am or have to be, or even what I think I would be if I was being me, and what I think being me is, and that I think I'm a head tripper, you may have noticed. But even that, any notion of what it will be like when I get to the point where I'm actually being me, that all of that that's not it at all. The being you it's not a destination. It's not a place that you get to and then you're there and you're you.
And then, the band breaks out into, cheers and song and the trumpets play.
Yeah.
And the angels call out in heaven, hallelujah. No, it's not like that.
Right. It's
No,
not
it's
that.
not.
It is actually the adventure. It's not the destination.
I love that. I love that. I have a t-shirt that says the joy is in the journey. And it's like that. It's not about the getting there.
There is no you to get to.
Yeah.
There is just you in the moment when you're being you in that moment. And that's can be something completely different in the next moment.
And that's so different from the way the majority of people have targets and goals, and that there's, when I lose 15 pounds, then I'll be happy, or then I'll be me, or then I'll whatever. Not be frustrated anymore.
The happy is really go ahead, Helen.
So with being you, and you're saying that it's totally different space, how much of that we are actually not willing to be, like when you said that you were resisting it? Because, and we actually had a little of that conversation with kind of like right now, I don't know how to talk to people. Like Rachel said, I don't know how to talk to people because they're not being themselves. And you can see it. You can notice how much of other people's judgment they're playing in their lives. And that's not them. And that's what I remember from my own journey, kind of like before and after starting to be or becoming a facilitator. So
I'm going to just interject something. You are always being. It's something we be naturally. It's amazing how the gardeners just start to cut the lawn, like right when we're on a stream.
yeah.
But we're always being, but somewhere, I mean, in childhood or somewhere, we forgot to be us in favor of trying to be like everyone else and be whatever everyone else expected. But we are us. We be us. It's the taking off all that other gunk that allows us to discover who we be rather than what everybody else desires or requires of us.
Mm-hmm.
And the choice for it. Like one of the things that came up for me before this stream was kind of the awareness that, when I walk into facilitated BU class or any class, like I drop my shit. It's gone. Like all the stuff that I torture myself with every day about like whatever it is, like that just doesn't exist. I let it go. I walk into the class and there's a space and an energy there that, to facilitate the class. And that's when that's one of the times where I most feel like I'm being me, is when I'm doing that facilitation. But it is like that choice. I choose to do that when I'm facilitating a class. So what would it take to choose to do that in like every moment of the day? And when I'm just being with myself and there's like, to be that space with my head tripping mind too. So.
Because you're more willing to do it for others than you are to include you in having that. So what would it take to choose to include you and to be the space of being the facilitator you be walking through the world? We've all taken Symphony of Possibility classes with Dr. Dane here. And one of the things that he invites us to be is the symphony walking. When we walk through the world, well, what if we be that walking all the time?
Yeah. And particularly now, like where Helen is talking about in this situation where people are not being them. And it's kind of so easy to get, even if you're not getting complete, drawn into it, there's still this, well, I want to be respectful of what they're choosing. And, how do I navigate? The rules are all different. Like whatever definitions we had about how the world worked have all been sort of blown out of the water. So when we don't have so many of these, like all the things that we've learned and have been defined are kind of shaky, there really is a lot of choice to be something different in that space. And to show up differently and to choose different and let that ripple out to everyone around too. So I've been, one of the things I played with a bit during this, during some of the periods where we were like more shut down and is just, I can be in my house by myself and I have a choice about what I'm going to be in that moment. And I can be miserable and grumpy because I'm, I can't go out and I'm not doing the things I want to do or whatever. Or I can be a joy and a gratitude and a space for no reason, just because that's more fun for me. And when I be that and vibrate with that does change the world, even though there's no other person in that room. But just choosing to be that vibration changes, also changes the world, even if there's not people physically there.
Yeah, because we all connected. We are connected to the planet. We are connected to other people. Because we are not alone. Even if we are alone in the house, we're still, first of all, we're perceiving probably thousands of people at the same time.
Yeah, that's been really intense.
Yeah, especially like perceiving their anger and frustration with all the COVID. But they also can perceive us.
Yes, exactly.
So if we are in that space of joy, ease, and happiness, how much it will, because energy has to vibrate, and there is like almost like a resonance frequency where people start vibrating at the same frequency. So instead of going lower to their vibration, what if we start raising their vibration? It's all physics. It's not even magic, though there is magic behind it.
Yeah. And that's all the being you. When you make that choice to be you, and like I say, and that's not a defined thing. So it's an interesting journey to kind of see.
Kristen, even home alone, it flavors everything. If you go out and you warm up a microwave meal, but you do it with gratitude and with joy.
Yeah.
Oops, we just lost Rachel because I was in there. Yeah, when we actually be with everything, like she said, with food, like with things, because everything has consciousness.
Yeah. So I'm in this house, like I'm house sitting, and I'm very grateful to have this space. I had been traveling for 2 years nonstop, so I didn't really have a home base. I knew something else was going to be required, but I kind of wasn't, settling somewhere wasn't popping as. And then just when I required it, this long-term house sit opened up. Lots of wonderful stuff about it. Beautiful view, walking distance to great hiking trails and downtown and like all sorts of things. And it's not my aesthetic as a house. But being here, I could choose to be but that wasn't really creating magic. Choosing to be grateful, like just for all of the ugly shit that's around here. And acknowledging it, because it is actually exactly what the people who have the house require. It actually is the greatest contribution it can be for the people that it owns. And acknowledging it for that and being grateful for it and connecting with all of it and just like flowing that gratitude for it. I mean, that shifted a lot for me. And it also lightened up the space. That and the SOP this summer really cleared out a bunch. Bring that from here, and
Oh, that
a
SOP,
whole different space of glass. I'm so grateful for Dane and that glass.
Yeah.
But again, just shifting the way I was interacting with it to one of gratitude rather than one of kind of resistance. Was a choice I could make that changed.
Because it's not so much what happens or what we create or whatever it is, it's our attitude toward that.
Yeah.
Because certain things we can control, certain things we cannot control, but still we can control our own action, our own thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Or not have those thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and just be in a space of knowing, being, receiving, and perceiving.
Yeah.
So with all of that, it's such a gift. I know with me and being you classes, it's a gift of shifting perspective from looking at everything that it is me. It is the extension of me, like the infinite embodiment.
Yes.
Things are still me.
We're not separate.
Or they're not separate.
Drop ocean.
Yeah.
That's right.
And same with people, like whatever they choose, and sometimes it's could be painful to look at them and see what they're choosing, and yet it's such a gift to know that we can be an allowance of their choices.
Yeah. And Rachel and I were talking about someone just before this, and that has been where I reached, to just be an allowance of what they are choosing. And it creates so much space. They are able to change more and faster in the way that they choose, with using the tools that they choose that actually work for them.
Exactly.
And then me as well. If I'm not kind of tying out, it has to be this way, then I have more space to choose using the tools that work for me. And they don't have to be the same tools. You know, this person is not probably ever, I mean, humanoid in magnitude probably will not ever be an, access person. But they found the tools that are working for them, and I can see the change it's creating, and it's phenomenal. So it isn't, there's not a right path or a right way to do it. And being an allowance of both for what you're choosing, even, when you feel like you're fucking it completely up, and being an allowance of what other people are choosing, then you can really get the awareness of that can come from the choices that you're making, whatever that awareness is. And then you can choose something different.
Yeah.
If you want to. Or you can continue choosing the same thing over and over too. It's okay.
Yeah. And I love what you just said. You can choose something different, or you can choose the same thing over and over again.
Oh, I was standing in the kitchen here this summer and just like, yeah. And I realized, I have been beating my head against the same wall for, probably trillions of years, for a very long time. And there was a moment where I just, I banged my head into that wall one more time, and I just went, that's it. And then there was just this, and then I made a different choice. But in that, there was this clarity of every one of those 700 billion, trillion, gazillion bangs into the wall was what was required to get me to make a different choice.
Yep.
And then I could be grateful for every single one of them. And they stopped being wrong. It was no longer wrong that I did that. And then just all of that just melts and goes away. And then there's so much something different then.
Yep. So what you said, make a different choice and banging against the wall. How is that related to you actually being you? Because to me, banging against the wall is not being you.
Banging against the wall, it might be you giving yourself the awareness that there might be something greater you could choose to be if you wanted to.
Yeah. So how do you recognize?
Ways, it is all you being you.
Right. It is all being you. But to me, it's kind of like there are choices that I make, and then there is a space of being.
Yes. How
would you kind of differentiate? Because we make choices. Some of them might not be the brightest choices, at least for me. It's just a choice.
Yeah.
So that space of being, to me, is much more expansive and less banging against the wall.
Yeah. Like in that space of being, it's not like you're not trying to figure out the choice. Like so often what we do is, for me, it's I try to figure out the choice. For someone else, it might be they're choosing from emotional reactivity of some sort, or we all have our different flavor of the things that we use to support us in making stupid choices.
Cute choices.
Yeah, cute choices. But that when you're in that space of being, you're not reacting from those mechanisms or those programs or those whatever it is that you've put in place there to keep you on that particular hamster wheel.
Yeah.
It's space. And then the choice just becomes, oftentimes for me, it's less defined. It's not that, now I'm choosing green rather than purple. It's just the space shifts. And I know that something different, I know I've chosen something different because it just feels different. I perceive something different.
Yeah.
But there's not a word or a definition to it. And that was one of the things that came up during the CF training. I was telling that I just took again, and was telling Rachel before that I came out of that just very totally completely fried, like I was in a very exploding within a very small box. There was a moment during that class when there was nothing specific that I could point to that was said or clearing that was run, but something, whatever was happening, I perceived just something changed. Like, oh, that, whatever that was, it just changed something. Like, that's going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
And now whatever that is seems to be doing what it does.
Yeah, but it's interesting because that begins to melt through. You were saying like exploding in a really small box, but then that really small box begins to melt and shift and change. And it may not be like one specific change, like what you were saying, but it colors your entire world, or it flavors your entire world with a different possibility. And it isn't choosing against what you've chosen before, but it's actually choosing for something that vibrates more like you now, that feels more spacious and more joyful and more fun.
Yes. And, they also say that, when you ask for something, then all the stuff in the way of you having that will come up. And so that happens as well. And what I have found, like when I remember, which I generally now will remember eventually, is that when it comes up, again, gratitude, lowering the barriers. Lowering the barriers is like my favorite overall tool now for a few years. Like it just makes all the other tools work better or work with more ease.
So explain to us, Kristen, explain to anybody who hasn't, who's going to be watching this in the future. And I'm going to apologize profusely right now because I fucked up. I set up the StreamYard a couple of weeks ago, and it lets you set it ahead of time on YouTube, but not on Facebook. Okay. And so I forgot to check, and so it's not currently streaming live on Facebook. I will upload it to the pages where we usually put it, but that's why there's no like comments or live people, because it's on channel. So I apologize. But what else is possible? But there was something that just came, that there were two things. I was going to apologize, and then I was going to comment on something that you were saying, and it left my brain.
Okay.
Apologies. It does.
I think the question was to maybe talk a little bit more about that wonderful tool of dropping the barriers.
Oh, yes, thank you. That. Yes.
I am in your brain a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So dropping barriers is just, it's like for whatever is there, it just drop the barriers. Some people, there's some like physical pushing down. I just sort of tend to come out of my head. Mm-hmm. It's a shift in focus. Like if you're really tunneled in on something or really engaged, just kind of expand out a bit and then a bit more. But like right now, like I have there's an excited energy like this, and wee. And if I just just take a breath and just.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, hi. Hi. And sometimes I do that, the barrier may move like this much. Sometimes I go barriers down and it's just whoomph. Mm-hmm. And one time, not that long ago, like that barrier was not budging at all. There was no movement. And so I was just like, okay, all right. I mean, I asked it, I played with it for a while, like an evening, and it like just was not budging. And I was like, okay, I'll check in with you later. Okay, I'll check in with you later. And I checked in the next day and the next day and the next day, and it was still like, But about 2 weeks later, I checked in and it was just like, So there's sort of like whatever level of barrier down you get to, that's awesome, whether it's 0.5% or 90%. And just like having that gratitude when the things that come up that are barriers, what I found is if you can, or that whatever barrier or anything you're reacting to or resisting or upset about, if you can like just shift the focus a little bit into a different space, take it out of even focus, relax, take a breath, interrupt the thought or the emotion, and just kind of be with it and say hi. It's like, hi, I see you there. Yep, you're there. Your barrier. Yep, that's the thing I always bring up. Yep, hi, you're back. Okay, hi. And then at some point I got to, oh, how cool it is. You're up now. That means I can change you. Awesome. I'm so grateful you're here. I'm so grateful you're here now, because that I'm choosing something different, and having that gratitude for it, and just flowing at gratitude in whatever amount of that you can muster. Sometimes that's not readily available. But those things, lower the barriers, flow gratitude towards it, flow whatever joy you can muster in the moment towards it or to it, and just be with it. And it will melt at some point. So
I love that. I'm actually tearing up.
So yeah, it's a really beautiful space. And it's such a different thing than what you were just in a moment ago, where it was so, life important that
and then it's suddenly everything is possible.
And then it's just, yeah.
Because I
and
found that
when it doesn't, like to be okay when it isn't that too.
Yeah.
None of it's wrong.
Yeah. So grateful. I love it. It's such an ease with that too for you. So, and for people who are like starting like their journey, maybe never had access, maybe never had any spiritual things or meditation or anything else, just looking at that and using that one tool, it might be an eye opener.
Yeah.
As well as maybe a step in the right direction, or at least like in the direction of being them.
And now with more practice, that barriers down, then like the other tools work too. Like, who does this belong to? Like, one of the basic tools you get first off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did not work for me, like years. And fortunately, with access, if one tool doesn't work, there's something else. Is mine?
Yeah.
That's a little easier for me to get to light. What's light or heavy about, is it mine? Then who does it belong to? So I would use the is it mine tool. But now, like when I put my barriers down to who does this belong to, like I can actually perceive the light and heavy with it. Like the awareness is more available if your barriers are down to whatever is up. If you're having an argument with somebody, or something is triggering in your world, putting your barriers down rather than armoring up allows you to have the awareness that will actually let you manage the situation or handle it with more ease and in a way that will contribute and create greater.
A lot of people will tell you that, oh, how can I put the barriers down when I'm arguing or when I have somebody attacking me? But it's actually easier to see what's true when the barrier's down. And becoming more vulnerable doesn't mean that somebody has more power to hurt us. It's actually, they have less power because they're now, instead of pushing against something solid, they are pushing against the air. And I remember taking a class, it's not Taekwondo, but it's one of the martial arts, where they teach you when somebody attacks you, actually become like a jello and just let go and just move around and eventually kind of like kick them. But in that moment, when you're a jello, they don't have any power over you. They cannot get you.
Yes.
Even in car accidents or things like that, we watched I can't remember what we watched, but we watched some stupid movie a couple of nights ago, and there was a car accident, and the one guy that was all like freaked out about the car accident, he got really badly injured, and the other character who fell asleep at the wheel and caused the dang accident, his body was so, like what you were saying now, jello, so no form, no structure. He was asleep and totally relaxed, right? And he got not a scratch.
Yeah.
I mean, not a scratch. Everybody else there, who was bracing, who was putting up all these barriers, and who was really resisting being hurt, got hurt.
Yeah.
But the one who was relaxed and willing to be present with what is, or as you're saying, no barriers. Wow. Everything just kind of flowed in and around them almost magically. Not condoning falling asleep while driving.
No.
But it's a different way of approaching life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just being relaxed instead of contracting when something attacks you or something comes your way or a problem, and trying to compute and get yourself out of it. What if we just relax into it and drop our barriers so we can become aware of what is in front of us instead of looking through the distorted glass of the barriers? Because a lot of times those barriers not allowing us to see, like you said, Kristen, when you had the barriers, you couldn't even perceive who does it belong to.
Right. Yeah. And when
Because
I have a barrier, I have to bang my head 7 billion times. Where, if I would lower my barrier.
Who it belongs to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that belong to?
Yeah.
And by the way, how often do we perceive the barriers that not even ours?
Yes, totally.
But I'm gonna like when I first started taking access classes, and someone said to me, "Lower your barriers." I'm like, "What the heck are barriers? Like, what do you mean?" I went straight into the calculating and calibrating and measuring and figuring out, what do you mean? What makes a barrier? And rather than just, okay, whatever separation is here between me and what is, down, boy, down.
Yeah. I remember sitting in my first access classes, and they were, Dane or somebody would say, lower your barriers. And I'd be sitting there kind of like, well, are my barriers down? I mean, it wasn't super thinking about it. It was just sort of like like, what even is that? Sort of like, well, are my barriers down? I mean, I think I lowered them. The space I have now with barriers down is so much more actual space than when I started with it.
Yeah.
And so have that allowance. And maybe now it just comes faster because things seem to be speeding up.
What's interesting for me, it's the opposite, because I knew what the barriers were. You're supposed to have the healthy boundaries. That because I came from a lot of like taking different modality techniques, classes, where I was taught to put up the barriers, to put up the protective barriers. And I had no idea how to survive without them. To me, they were like, oh my God, I cannot drop my barriers. I need to have the mirrors around me, the light around me, you can name like even the metal, like imagining a metal around me. And it took me a while to realize, wait a second, they're not functional barriers. They're like the armor on people in the Middle Ages, where things can still hurt you. They don't protect you from anything. They just confine you.
Hardier and clunkier. When you're doing one of those knight's tale kind of.
Yeah.
What you call those in the Renaissance festivals? You see the jousting. You still be good. And all that armor just makes you heavier.
And you cannot move.
Harder to move.
Exactly. So it took me, I think, probably a couple of years before maybe less, but at least some time before I realized, wait a second, I don't need my barriers. I can be that jello,
Yes.
the jellyfish, or like in that movie, My Octopus Teacher,
I love that.
where, yeah, I love that because it can shape itself into any form, kind of like formless, but at the same time, it can look and act and be like everything around it. And it's so beautiful to see. And it doesn't have any barriers. But if it does need a barrier, it would put up something. But that would be a choice, not necessity like I used to be.
Not
Not a
an
habitual
automatic
way of
reaction.
functioning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a
'Cause-
mechanism of this is the way life is.
Yes.
Yeah, like a turtle, like walking, or like that hermit crab trying to protect itself constantly, but is it actually living?
Yeah.
Or is
Well,
it
if
just
you check out my turtles in the yard, they actually like it. They do Superman pose periodically. They'll get on one of the rocks outside of their little
Mhm.
this makeshift pond that they have, and they'll get on one of those rocks to sun themselves, and they stretch out. We call it the Superman pose, like literally turtle in air. It's very so even they enjoy having their time outside barriers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so cool.
But that's a really beautiful invitation because most of us tend to shy away from what's uncomfortable or shy away from what is almost an unknown, for fear of change or for fear of, I don't know, pain or intensity or whatever it is that we've decided is bigger than what we are. We don't recognize that our willingness to be and our willingness to be the source of our life, there isn't anything that's going to be bigger than us. So the house that may not be so amazing, when you first move into it, to house sit, when you change your point of view even just a wee bit, like what you were saying, suddenly you had newfound appreciation for the space and for the contribution that that space is for the family who generally lives there that you're house sitting. It just changes everything. And it's your willingness to just look from a different perspective or not, just to allow something else in, and that
not hold on to the rightness of your point of view.
Oh, yes.
About how things are and how they ought to be. And this is, what works for me. This is what's right. This is how everybody else should do it.
Mm-hmm.
The rightness of your point of view is tiny. It's not the wide open, amazing space that you be when you let those barriers down.
Mm-hmm.
When you let those barriers down, you naturally expand as you're not containable in the same way anymore.
Totally not containable in the same way anymore.
No. How can you contain the infinite being?
Well, yeah. How much does that terrify us?
Yeah, and for people who are just starting, you don't have to be the infinite being. You can be just a little bit bigger than you are right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's where we are each at wherever it is that we are at in that moment. So, and it is, I have a totally different experience with barriers down now than I did when I started with them. Yeah. And it wasn't any kind of linear or defined path. I just played with them sometimes, forgot about them for years at a time, tried, did them again. At some point, they popped as a thing to play with more, and then I did that. And it's all, my perception of many of the tools has grown and changed, and things that I facilitated around a tool several years ago, I wouldn't say that now about that tool. I would say
Oops.
Start where you're at. Choose the tools that work for you in the moment. Play with them. See what changes. See what shifts. See what you become aware of. It'll change. A different tool will pop up for next. And it's all good.
Yeah. And Kristen, where can people find you if they'd like to get consultation from you?
Yeah.
Or
They can find me. I have a website. It's kristentromble.com. I also have a profile page on the accessconsciousness.com website, so you can send me a contact request through either one of those.
Okay. Wonderful. Any classes coming up at this moment, or they're still in the planning stage?
There are some classes in the twinkling stage. So, and I also, I do symphony sessions and just facilitation sessions. Those can all be done by distance. So,
yep, yeah, we're all doing it by distance.
Yeah.
At this moment, kind of like the world is still on isolation, at least on social isolation.
Yeah.
Oh, but this entire, well, I think today, tomorrow, and also next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, depending where you are around the world, the Being You certified facilitators are offering Being You unmasked sessions.
Yeah.
And so you can go to the Being You, where can they go? Is it beingyouadventure.com/unmasked or something like that? Or if you go on Facebook,
let me just double check
for Being You Unmasked, you will find it. Or if you put it in the chat for me, if anybody can, then I will post it. But I will also post it with the replay and beneath the video.
I have the Facebook part of it. That's great. Let me put it in here.
And then I'll
wait a sec. It's a Samantha Lewis. Never mind. That's not it. But let's see where the major one. But we can put this one on. I think there are links to go wherever it needs to go. Or
did you put it in the private chat? Can I see it there? Or?
Yeah, it's there. And awesome. Let me see if here is a Facebook event. I got it.
Okay.
Copy. Okay.
So I'll put it on, and then that'll make it easier for people, because those are so much fun too, all around the world.
This is actual event. Yeah.
Time zones. Different people are. Oh, here we go. Now it's actually showing it to me. Yeah. Okay. So what is it called? Being You Unmasked, right?
Hold on a second. Let me click on that so I can tell you my. Okay. Okay. So it's called Being You Unmasked Sessions, and they are September 28, 29, 30th, and then October 6th and 7th.
October 6th, 7th, right? It depends on the time zones, I think. And I've got it.
And also there is a class coming up on October 1st for us, creating more time, money, and joy, I think.
Yeah, that should be a lot of fun. It's a 1, 2, 3 kind of class. So it's October 1st, October 3rd, and October 4th, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it's October 1st. 3rd and 4th.
3rd and 4th. See. To just play, totally unstructured and totally experimenting and exploring. And so, yeah, these tools are amazing. And what I've really, really gotten with access tools ever since I first found them, I first went into them with my head, like trying to figure them out or trying to figure me out. Or I would see, like what you were saying before, Kristen, I would see like one aspect of the tool.
Yeah.
And the longer I play with it, the more I allow it to marinate my world. I don't know why everything is like flavor. I must have been really hungry yesterday. I don't know. During the fast. But when I allow it to marinate and flavor my world, when I allow myself to just wonder about a tool without it necessarily even being like first and foremost in my mind, like, oh, I've got to do this tool now. No, I just allow it in my space, and I allow it to play with me, and I allow me to play with however it shows up. And it's not necessarily even cognitive, but suddenly the very thing that looked one way several years ago has so much depth and so much breadth and so much beauty in it now that I almost don't have the words to express it, but it takes on a far more magical, for lack of a better word, much more magic capacity.
Magical.
Or get the right tool or do access right or anything like that. It's just entirely different. And I'm extremely grateful for that. And just before I forgot, the telecall that Ellen and I are having this week as well. It's this week. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's starting on Thursday.
It is. It's getting better.
Yeah.
Wonderful for more people to find these tools and to begin to recognize that they can explore a much deeper, much richer way of living and not having to get anything right. It's this playful experimenting and being present. That's just so phenomenal.
One of the words that has been popping for me the last year or so has been like de-solidifying. It just seems like everything is just becoming less solid.
Yeah. Oozing, melting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because, just more space and more malleability, less dense. Like there's just less density to everything.
And a lot of that seemed to have come up a lot more around all the lockdown. Like anything that we thought the world functioned as before suddenly doesn't function like that anymore.
No.
And if we're willing to, just like, in a car accident, if we're willing to not brace ourselves against it or worry about what can possibly happen wrong, how terrible this might be, what if we could relax through it and, melt through it, de-solidify, as you say.
Yeah.
And it's like Neo in the Matrix, you're moving in a different way through everything that's in the world around. And
just acknowledging that all of those points of view about how things were and how reality worked, like those just shifted very quickly.
Yep.
So we don't have to solidify around new points of view that are being presented to us. Because we now know, we have the awareness, that wasn't as solid as it looked. And we don't have to leap to a new solid thing.
Yeah.
We can change. It can change really quickly.
Because everything is pretty much energy. And we can change everything, just like in Matrix. Remember that spoon bending exercise?
Yes. Yeah.
And
how much time can we have?
Yeah. Exactly. And what if it's about, and not actually what if, it is about joy. It is about creating more fun, no matter what it looks like.
Yeah.
That's one of the gifts. The access has been for me, the change that I've seen is that for decades, since I was a tiny child, I had identified myself as a sad, depressed, introverted, inept in many ways person. And that was my reality. Like I was just really sad. I didn't know what fun was. None of the options for fun looked fun for me. It was just like, and then, with the access tools, I was talking to an ex-partner on the phone probably about a year ago. And he said, Kristen, you're actually just a happy person who likes to have fun. And I went, yeah, I know. That had become true for me. As I kind of got to be me more. So that's one of the things that being me and using the Being You tools has created for me. So I can be the only thing or the last thing, or I'm sure it can be even more fun and more happy. But
And people can actually grab a copy of the book as well, the Being You Changing the World book, and start exploring the tools, even if they're not necessary, because it's easy to get, even if you're quarantined somewhere, you can get a Kindle, you know,
Or
a
Amazon
Kindle
can ship.
or Amazon ships.
Yeah.
I mean,
In the United States, yes. Outside United States, a little more difficult, but we've got
Kindle?
the digital downloads. Kindle works fantastically, and there are so many amazing spaces that are available if we just open the door a tiny bit and allow them to permeate our world.
Yeah.
And so grateful for this conversation and for all the conversations we had so far. And what else is possible? And how does it get even better than that?
I'm so grateful that you joined us, Kristen. Thank you.
Thank you.
And really, what a gift. And I love that each of us in this whole Conversations on Being series, we've talked to different facilitators. Each of us is very different. We function totally differently. And that's part of the gift. And that's the invitation. Being us is not being right. That's just a little point of view. It's about being ourselves in whatever flavor, whatever color, whatever, wonderful invitation that we be to the world. The more of us are willing to be us, the more other people are willing to be themselves as well. And then maybe there'd be more happy people on the planet. What a concept. Revolutionary.
Yeah, because happiness, just like the sadness, is contagious.
Yeah. But it's not about being like anybody else. It's just
being you.
Yeah. So thank you. And
thank you.
I'll see you
thank you both.
next time.
Very, very grateful.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye.